In this video, we are going to give you 7 formulas to write an eternal story. Well, stories rule the world. Times have changed and the mediums of communication have also changed, yet the frameworks for the stories are still the same. So here are the 7 formulas and let me just tell you the names. So first the monomyth, the mountain, the nested loop, sparklines. We also have the in media as false start, the petal structure. Let me know in the comments if you have heard of any of these before. Now moving on, let's begin. And if you are going to take notes, be ready for that. So the first one is the monomyth. It is the most popular framework across all the Disney movies. So it starts with the heroes leaving their homes to find a solution, only to end up in an unknown and uncomfortable place. But as the movies and the stories progress, they overcome all the obstacles and return home with revolutionary knowledge. Let me know if that is relatable to you. So this is the depiction of the monomyth. So the main character starts from a known territory, which is their comfort place, and move on into the territory which is unknown to them, and that's where the true development happens, and then they return back, just like we saw the story of the Lion King. So this one, so monomyth was the first storytelling framework, and the second one is the mountain. It is best if you want to build tension before reaching the climax. In those cases, this technique works best. So this is a breakdown of what a typical mountain story looks like. So firstly, the characters are introduced and the settings are introduced, then there's an opening, then there's a problem just before the climax, and then comes the resolution and then the lesson learned from it. So most of the TV series follow the mountain pattern. So this is what the mountain pattern looks. So there is all this drama and build up towards the climax, and there is a gradual resolution of all that drama and all the questions that have arisen. Moving on, the next framework is the nested loop. So this one has 3 different stories all playing at the same time. So you have the main story, the second story to help the main story, then there's the story of the antagonist. Now there should be at least one link that should be common in between all of them. So the first story, that from where you started off, it will finish last, second before that, and so on. So it is the example of classic hero versus the villain tale. So just like you see Spider-Man, so there's a second story, then there's the hero, then there we have the story of the antagonist, and then it all leads up to the final showdown. Then is the sparklines framework. So the world's most famous speech given by Martin Luther King Jr., he used this framework in his iconic speech. So the speech you might know is by the title I Have a Dream, and in that speech he is alternating the story from what is happening and what could be happening. So it is a strike off between the current situation versus the ideal world, and it sparks a desire in the audience as well. So this is the spark lines. So there is hope and then there is the reality. This was the speech given by Martin Luther King Jr., and then we have the in media res. In this framework, you begin the story in the heat of the action. So the story starts at the climax. You just drop the audience to the climax of the story and leave them hanging to find out how and why this happened. So a TED talk by Zach Ibrahim, I'm the son of a terrorist. Well, this TED talk is perfectly the example of in media res. Then we have the false start. So this framework is used where you start your story with something that is very obvious and predictable, but the thing is that the story takes a complete U-turn and the story restarts every time to make little progress. The source code, you might know the movie, is a very good example of this framework. Then you have the petal structure. So it is another unique technique which you can use to have multiple stories, but it is not like the nested loop. So this one doesn't have a one main story. So start telling one story at a time, connect these stories from an individual to a part of the one big idea, which obviously would be a grand finale. So Game of Thrones perfectly executes this. So it is an example of the petal structure. So these were the 7 frameworks of storytelling. If you liked this video, then you should know that these frameworks were compiled by Tanmay Singh Chauhan on Twitter. He posts a lots about copywriting and writing and storytelling. If you are interested in that sort of content, you should definitely check out his Twitter profile. And if you are generally interested in finding more informative and helpful content, do watch out the other videos on the channel as well, where I have a lot of tricks, tips and a lot of useful information.